we've done a little bit of solving equations here, whether it's in this class or whether it's a previous class. We're going to talk about this idea of algebraic symbol manipulation. All right. Now this is important because throughout math class, you know this, there's many types of formulas. And one of the reasons why these formulas are important is maybe, for example, you have the formula to find the area of a rectangle. It's just the area of the length times width. Now, this formula is going to help us find the area, right? If we know the length and the width of a rectangle, then we can find the area of that rectangle. But here's what happens. Sometimes we know the area and the length. So let's say that I have this rectangle here, and I'm going to use some numbers that we can mentally solve it. Let's say the area is 24 inches squared, and this, you want to call a length right here, is 4 inches. I want to find the width. Now, for one problem, it's not that big of a deal. You just plug the area and the length in, and you can go ahead and solve for the width. But what happens is when you have a whole bunch of problems that are set up this way, and that you're trying to find the length when given the area and the width, we can rewrite a new formula using algebraic symbol manipulation. All right. So what we want to think about is, how do we get this letter that we're trying to solve for, in this case L, how do we get it by itself? All right. So in our final answer, we want to have L equals something. All right. So that means the W needs to go the other side. Well, let's think about it. How is the W connected to what I want to isolate? It's connected by a multiplication. So if I divide that W out, it cancels on this side, and I'm left with an A equals W, or I'm sorry, A over W equals L. Alright, and so that's the basic of this algebraic symbol manipulation. One of the more possible cases you might see it, and maybe we'll get into it when we do a little bit more in depth, is converting back from Fahrenheit to Celsius. Okay, there's a formula that you can use to take a temperature and convert it from a Fahrenheit temperature. Excuse me, a yawn there. A Fahrenheit temperature to a temperature that's in degrees Celsius. All right, and so you can manipulate that equation back and forth using those two temperatures. All right, so here's what I would encourage you to do. Whenever you're trying to use an algebraic manipulation, go ahead, circle or underline the letter that you're wanting to do by itself. So in this case, it's a V. That's going to help us realize that that number, or that, in this case, letter, does not need to get touched. It doesn't need to be added to both sides. It doesn't need to be multiplied to both sides. All right? But what we need to do is we need to get rid of everything that's on that same side. So we have a V and a U. It's U times V, so I'm going to go ahead and divide by U on both sides. Right? Now, be careful here, because we know the V's by itself. Typically, when you're using algebraic manipulation, you cannot simplify anything. All right? And in this case, it's still true. It's 10 over U equals V. All right? So just trying to get the letter by itself. All right, go ahead. Let's take a look at this next example here. Okay, we're trying to solve the equation for n. Okay, so go ahead, try to get n by itself, and let's see what the final answer is. All right, so here we go, guys. We know that we're trying to get n by itself. We have the n there, and we're going to get rid of everything else on that same side, so it's an m. Now be careful here, because in the past it's been multiplication, but here's an addition. So how do we get rid of addition? Well, we subtract it. And there's a couple different ways you could write this. Okay, you could write it 12 minus n. That's typically how you might see it, but if you're going to write it this way, that's also acceptable. Negative n plus 12. Let's take a look at another one here where it is a couple more steps. All right. Now these are some problems that you might see, and this is where it might be helpful. We might be able to combine some numbers here, but we may not be able to. All right. So let's just see if we can get y by itself. All right. So again, we have the y here. We're going to try to get by itself. Now we have to think about it. Just like on a regular equation, would I get rid of the number that's being multiplied or what's being added or subtracted? Well, I get rid of what's being added or subtracted. So we have a negative 20x to both sides. We're left with this entire 4y, and then over here, I'm going to write the x part first, the negative 20x, because if I do that, it's going to be in slope-intercept form. All right, and that's not the biggest deal as far as getting the right or wrong answer on this problem, but it might help us in the future being able to graph lines and being able to easily identify parts of them. All right, so I have a 4 times the y. Again, I'm still trying to get the y by itself. So it's 4 times, so I'm going to divide it. Now be careful here. I need to divide it by every single thing. And this type of problem here on the left side, again, the 4's cancel. We can actually do some reducing. So it's negative 20 over 4, or negative 5 if I just divide it, and 32 over 4, or 8. So y equals negative 5x plus 8. All right, let's see if here, take a look at this example. It looks like we're trying to solve the equation for c. All right, so take a moment and try to get c by itself. All right, class, again, we're trying to get c by itself. So notice it was a positive d, so I'm going to subtract it to both sides. It was a negative d, so I'm going to add it. And so c is by itself, and now that I have l minus b plus d. Now, I will be honest with you, there's a couple different varieties that you could have of your answer. All of them have to have c by itself, but maybe you have it written this way. Maybe you have it l plus d minus b. Maybe you have it as d plus l minus b. Oops, I'm sorry, that should be equals c right here. This one right here, maybe you have it as d minus b plus l. The important thing to note is, and there's even more possibilities than I'm showing you here, that the d has to be positive, the l also has to be positive, and the b has to be negative. All right, so that's the key part of that right there.